So it's been a couple of weeks now since we did the video on the repair side of things. A few issues and a few little hold-ups on other bits and pieces that have stopped me from getting this final epoxy and the wet on wet primer onto the van. But today, or this afternoon should I say, we have a long afternoon, everything's mashed, everything's sorted out, and the van now, as you can see, is fully ready to go. So the way that we're going to be doing this is we're going to be using a slightly thinner mix of the epoxy to give this one full sealing coat now to cover up where we've done all the repair work, any bare metal areas, any rub throughs, anything like that. We're then going to leave it for an hour at room temperature, around about 20-25 degrees in the booth for a good hour, and then we can use the Mipa 4:1 high build and use that as a wet, almost like a wet on wet, and go straight on top of the epoxy without sanding it. Now I spoke to Mark Ayres, who is the Mipa rep, a very knowledgeable guy. He taught me through what would be best as far as that goes, and he said it'd be no issue to do it like that. So now we've got all this done, it means that we can put the primer on, and then we can put the epoxy on, sorry, and then we can put the primer on. We can do it in a wet on wet process, so we've got no sanding in between, so we don't have to put the epoxy on and then keel the epoxy up and then put the high build on, because obviously it's a massive area to do. So the last thing that I want to be doing is going around and re-sanding this whole van all over again if I really don't need to. So to me, using the Mipa products on this seemed like the best way to go. It's been quite cost efficient, and obviously using the same products from the same manufacturer with this wet on wet method, it's approved by them, so we shouldn't have any issues as far as adhesion goes onto the epoxy, and we can get 2 stages done in the booth in one big hit. We're also just going to do the little trim pieces along with it, and then tomorrow I'm going to chuck in all the panels off the van and get all the panels in their final epoxy and primer as well, because they're all sorted out and ready. But as an overall view, the van now is all done, it's all masked. We've repaired all the roof and all the roof's done, but I'm not going to be epoxying and priming that all at the same time because it would just be too much to try and keep wet. So what I'll do is when the bottom ends has its full epoxy and prime, I will epoxy, prime, and then literally sand and paint that section of the roof there, and then mask that off so that we can paint the rest of the van in the stages that we need to. So let's take a little bit at this stage, and I will, as always, talk you through the process of what we're doing and why we're doing it, and also show you the products that we've used, and a bit more of a chat about why we've used them, and you know, why our decision was to go with the Mipa over other things as far as this van goes. So let's get cracking.
So the first thing that we're going to I'm just going to do here is I'm just going to clip up to my air fed, get my regulators and everything set and working before I start putting this on. This epoxy is quite pungent stuff. It's not something that you want to be breathing in, whereas obviously normal paint isn't something you want to be breathing in. But I just want to make sure that I'm wearing my air fed, I've got everything rigged up. I'm just having a quick check here just to make sure gauges, everything are looking good. And we built this little protective box for that this week, so that doesn't get covered in crap and get covered in contaminants and overspray and everything, so we can keep the filters and everything really nice and clean inside there. Now for the epoxy, I am using the same Mipa EP epoxy, the high build epoxy that I used last time, but I've ordered some of the epoxy thinners. I've added 10% to it just to knock the thickness back a little bit, and I'm running that through my Segola 3300 GTO. I'm running at 2 bar. On the roof I'm running a full fan, and then when I get down to the front in a little while I turn the fan down a little bit just to gain a little bit of speed. Now I've used a little bit of the epoxy thinners in there just to make sure that this is not going down in such a thick coat, because I don't really want build to this. I want one nice even wet closed coat. So what I mean by a closed coat is a full wet coat, as you can see on the roof here. But I don't really want to be hammering it on and putting a build on. I don't want to be putting a massive amount of film thickness. I just thin this down a tiny little bit just to give me basically a sealer coat of epoxy, just to seal every bit of work that we've done in, and then everything's sealed off when the high build goes over the top of it. Now the way that I figured would be best to do this would be to run it through my 1.8, thin it down a tiny bit, and then I crank the pressure up a little bit, because it is quite thick stuff this. I'm using the E25 hardener, which is the standard hardener with this epoxy, and then I've just put, like I say, about 10% of the Mipa Epoxy primer, the Mipa Epoxy reducer in there. Now that just enables me to get this really nice thin build. As you can see, there's a few bare metal areas where we block things out, like on this roof area. This was, you know, really nice and straight. And as you'll see as I get around to the other side, as it's wetting up, you can see the panels on this van as I'm going around are really nice and they're really flat. You know, there's no issues there now. But there is them areas where we've been blocking the van down, where there's bits of bare metal, there's paint edges. Obviously there's all the filler work that we've done. So the best thing to do really was just be to seal this whole van up. Now, the reason that I'm going for a wet on wet method with this, and by wet on wet method, what I mean is in between the two stages that we're going to be going through in this video, so the epoxy and then the high build, there will be no sanding in between the application of these coats. Now, the trick to this with most things is you let them flash off, but they don't fully cure. Now, if you leave them past a certain point, then they will lose their chemical adhesion properties, so you'll be basically painting, almost like painting on top of a shiny surface. You know, the stuff that you put on top is just not going to stick to the surface that you've already put down. So if we epoxied this, left it overnight, came back the next day, the primer is not going to adhere to the epoxy properly, and we could end up with the paint flaking or adhesion issues in the future, which obviously, especially on a job this size, is going to be a huge problem for us as a shop. Now, after speaking to the Mipa rep and looking through all the data sheets and everything, we worked out that the best way of doing this with this particular epoxy, so that we don't have to epoxy this whole van, leave it overnight, let it dry off, and then go around and re-key up the whole van again, which obviously on a job this big would be a ginormous task. The best way of going about this on this job is to put this on, give it a good hour. Now, we're talking an hour in the spray booth with the booth running, so it's going to be running between, in the region of about 20 to 25 degrees. That will give this plenty of time to flash off and be touch dry and surface dry, but not to the point where it's fully cured. So we're in between the point where it's fully cured, but it's not wet. So the surface will all be dry, the primer will take to it and stick to it. Now, doing wet on wet over epoxy I was a little bit dubious about, because some epoxies you can do this, some epoxies you can't do this. So I have run tests on this and done cross hatch tests and all sorts to make sure that this does work before I've done this on this van, regardless obviously of you know, like the reps recommendations. I just wanted to be safe in my own mind that before I went shooting what would be around about 100 quid's worth of paint on this one particular day on this van and spending a whole afternoon doing it, that everything was going to be nice and everything was going to stick properly, obviously before I went and did that. So I have done some tests. It does work perfectly fine. We're using the Mipa 4:1 high build. This is their 2:1 EP epoxy, their gun filler epoxy. It's really nice stuff. It's the same stuff that we used in the first video on this van, if you guys caught the applying epoxy sealer video. If not, I will leave a link in the description to that video so you can take a look at that. Now, as I'm going around, I'm being very careful to make sure that I do get all the areas, all the gaps, you know, all them little tight panel gaps and panel joints and everything. I want to make sure that any bare metal anywhere on this van is sealed right out at this point. I want to make sure all the paint edges are sealed over, any filler work is sealed over, so that we've got a complete blank sealed canvas again before we start shooting the primer down. Now, I did get some comments on the applying epoxy sealer video on this. Some, I gotta be honest, most of them, like the bad comments on it, were just keyboard warriors saying that we shouldn't be doing a job this way, it should be fully bare metaled and blah 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 blah. And I gotta be honest, to those people that did leave those kind of comments, I don't really care. We live in the real world in our shop. Customers have different budgets. Not every customer has the budget to have one of these vans fully bare metaled, fully restored and repainted from the ground up like that. I know a few lads, and I've been down to paint for a few lads down in Birmingham who do a lot of these vans, and their average price on a full bare metal restoration on one of these is anything from like 20 to 30,000 pounds. Now 90% of customers cannot afford that, so hence why I say I live in the real world. You know, most customers can't afford that. Most customers want their van tidied up, they want it nice, they want the issues sorting out, and they want to do the best job, or get the best job that they can within the budget that they have got. It's not a case of a customer is being tight, or you know, they're not spending enough money. It's just people have different budgets. So if you are one of them people that left one of them comments and you leave one on this video, it really does not bother me, because as far as one guy saying I'm a wannabe painter, there's not many wannabe painters out there that have got 26,000 subscribers and are getting 200,000 views a month. You know, I'd be a hell of a wannabe painter if I was doing that, in my opinion. I run a body shop, so I'm not a wannabe painter. I do this for a living, and on jobs like this is the best way of going about a job like this. You know, we've got to work to what a customer wants, and within their needs and within their budgets. And if we turn down everybody who didn't want to do a perfect job, so if no one wanted a clear blend on a bumper corner, which again, you know, factories do that all day every day, so I don't understand why we can't do it in a body shop. If we turn down every job that someone didn't want bare metal, then we wouldn't have a business. 99% of body shops in the world would not be open, because that kind of work is just not readily available all day every day for the average body shop. If you're a specialist in restorations, it's a different thing, but we're not. You know, we will take on any job, whether it be, you know, painting a push bike, whether it be an everyday accident repair or a bumper scuff, right up to, you know, this guy is a follower, he's a subscriber, he's seen a lot of work. We've done works for friends of his as well. He knows us very well, and this is the job that he wanted to his budget, and we're happy that at the end of it, it will be lasting. So I don't see an issue in doing a job like this. And as for me, that's my little rant for today over. It's not often I have a little rant, but you know, them sort of comments on the previous video were just a little bit stupid, if I'm honest with you. Obviously some people need to wake up and realise that the real world is not the same as you see on TV, on these restoration shows and stuff like that, where jobs take, you know, half an hour to complete a full restoration start to finish. They don't. They take weeks or months, and a lot of, you know, hundreds of hours worth of work go into a van like this. I mean, I would say at this point I've probably put a good maybe 12, 14 days solid work into this van to get it to this point. And there's quite a bit of a way to go as well before this van is obviously in paint and looking 100% again. Now, I've just changed the camera angle up a little bit here for you guys, just to give a little bit of variation in you looking at what I'm doing and how I'm going about it from a slightly different angle. And I will also do that for the primer stage in a second.
So that's the first stage done. The epoxy is now sealing the whole van. Everything's looking nice, clean, straight, just as we want it. All the metal, all the bare paint edges, all the filler work, everything now across the whole van, including the roof section, is now all sealed up. So as per the recommendation from Mark, we're now going to leave this for an hour at around about 20-25 degrees, let this fully flash off but not cure, and then we're going to come in and mix some high build up using the Mipa 4:1 high build, and then we're going to put 2 really good thick solid coats of high build over the top of this, and then give it a really nice long bake before I go home for the day.
So I know I said there I was going to give it 2 coats, but I actually decided to give this 3. Now I've done this on a time lapse because it is me just applying high build. I mixed this 4:1. I didn't use any reducer or any thinners in it, and to be honest, the amount of time it took me to go around this whole van, I didn't need a flash off on it. As you can probably see there, it's already starting to flash on the roof, so I could just go straight round back to back with 3 really nice wet coats on this, which will give it a nice bit of a build. It's going to give me something to block out with a 240, and then D8 with a 400, and then that's going to give me that real nice layer and seal over the whole van so that I can get this sanded and get it painted.
So that's 3 coats of high build on there now, which I decided to put on. I've shown you guys the first coat on the time lapse because I didn't want to make this video like 3 hours long showing the whole process, but you've seen enough that you can get the idea of what we're doing and why we're doing it across the van. The van now is looking really nice. Everything looked nice and straight, nice and smooth as the primer was going on. Couldn't see any sort of problem areas or issues. There will be a few little bits and bobs that we're going to need to tickle up as we go along, like a few bits like where the seams and stuff are, a few little pinholes and niggly little bits and bobs, but like all the sort of really bad problem areas that we had before are all sorted and all fixed, and everything genuinely is looking nice and straight now. Same for the back and the front of the roof, which will probably be one of the very first jobs that we actually block out and paint, will be the roof on this. But overall, we're looking pretty tidy, pretty nice. And all these bits that looked really bad previously, like the window surrounds, all the window surrounds were like really pitted and not in the best shape for as far as getting a window to seal. Steps inside the door shuts and stuff like that wasn't that good either. But now overall, it's looking clean, straight. It's been a lot of hours to get it to this stage, but hopefully now, in the next video, what we'll do is we'll re-guide coat this, we'll block it out with a 240, then we'll sand it with a DA with a 400, and then start masking up and getting some paint on here, and take you guys through the whole paint stage. And what I'll probably do at the end, when this is rebuilt and got the glass in it, or when it's at the stage when all the panels are back on it and it's got the glass in it, before our customer takes this away, I'll get the drone out in the yard and we'll get some finished shots of it in the final video. But there'll be a couple more videos to come on this nice old bus. It's looking good now, clean, straight, all the problems are gone, so I'm happy at where it's at the moment. It's nicer than I thought it would be, everything's come up nice. So that's going to be it for today's video, guys, and I'll see you again in the next one. Bye for now.